Hey everyone, welcome to the Clear Path Podcast. Today we're doing a Warriors Weekly episode. I sadly don't have Jeff here today for me, but we're doing a special Black Friday episode. Hopefully that can get you guys engaged in a little bit about what the Warriors have been doing over the last couple week, I guess, since the last time we had a Warriors Weekly, and kind of get you up to speed with what's going on. So just to kind of give a quick recap, obviously the Warriors have been struggling this year. The Warriors are currently 7-9 on the season. They haven't been doing so hot as of late, as we talked about last week. They lost, I think, 5 games in a row. They recently actually were able to edge out over the Houston Rockets, but they did end up losing to the Suns just recently, actually on Wednesday. And I believe they have a game later today that we'll get to see and see if the Warriors can finally make it back to 500, as they right now are 7-9 on the season. Just to go over kind of some season statistics to talk about where they are right now. Their offensive rating is 114.4. Their defensive rating is also 114.6. And they're relatively middle of the pack in terms of their defensive rating is above 15, but their offensive rating is pretty poor. The thing to note about this, though, is Draymond Green has been out for at least the past couple of games. And so obviously that takes a hit on their defensive rating. But overall, this team has not really had a problem on the offensive end. I mean, on the defensive end. Instead, that problem has been clearly on the offensive end for this team. Just looking at the struggles that people have kind of pointed out this season. Obviously, Klay Thompson struggled to start the season. It seems like he's coming back into form, but just to rehash some of those things, he's still shooting 36% on the season, and Andrew Wiggins is still struggling from three-point land. He had that one great game versus the OKC Thunder that we were almost able to win, if not for Chet's huge turnaround shot. Feel free to check out one of the videos we did on a film review on that, but Andrew Wiggins still shooting around 24% from three, which is better than his 17% that we looked at last week, but still, not the best 3-point shooting, and it hasn't been very consistent. As far as other things that have gone wrong with the Warriors, besides those two, I think really the starting unit has not worked very well together. You'd think that the starting lineup, they used to have the best plus minus in the league, and actually the starters are minus when you look at Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Chris Paul, Andrew Wiggins, Kevon Looney, and Draymond Green, whereas you look at players like Gary Payton II, not Gary Payton II, and Dario Saric and CP3, they're actually positive on the season, which is very interesting to kind of see this season. And with the lineup specifically without Draymond, we do really struggle, specifically when Chris Paul is starting, because we're just so small and it becomes very tough for the Warriors to compete. Something I did want to highlight this season, that's kind of one that I think is important as we look throughout the entire season, is the rise and fall of certain of our role players. Obviously, Dario Saric has been incredible this season, shooting a great 3-point percentage of 35%, which is really good for the big man he is. He's been doing well on 2-point shots as well, and he's had a really good pick and roll game with CP3, which has been kind of honestly awesome to watch. On the other hand, Brandon Pajemski has also kind of shown that he's going to be getting more minutes, and he's been able to kind of make his way into the rotation, which is very, very good for his kind of future. He's shooting like 44% from three right now, but honestly, I think that obviously that percentage will go probably a little bit down, but I think he getting used to the NBA 3-point line is something that's usually tough for young players, and so I expect him to become a better shooter overall as kind of he learns the NBA game, and as that becomes, easier for him to do. He has a lot of turnovers on the season. He has 12 turnovers right now. Obviously, his assists aren't really there. He's only had 6 assists. So it shows he's a little bit of a sloppier player right now, but he's getting used to the game. And as the third Warriors point guard, I think sometimes there's a lot of weight placed on you, especially when Chris Paul got ejected in the last game. A lot of weight was placed on Brandon Pajemski, and so that was a little bit hard. Another bright spot for the Warriors on the bench has definitely been Moses Moody. I'm shooting 33% from three, which is a bit lower than earlier in the season, 45% from the floor. But I think something that's important to see: 14 steals from Gary Payton II, as well as Moses Moody, so performing very well on defense. And he has fouled a little bit more, but he's been way better at not fouling than he was last year. And it's clear that he's kind of part of the rotation to stay. As far as looking on the other side of the coin, Jonathan Kuminga, he's been struggling a little bit from three. He obviously doesn't take many attempts. He only has 33 on the season, but he's only made 6. He's like shooting 18%. I think that shot needs to develop a little bit more from 3-point land. Shooting a lot of twos, which makes sense because he is, a better 2-point shooter. He's shooting about 50% on those. We'd hope that percentage goes a little bit up as the season kind of goes on, as he's relied upon more. I think he's kind of figuring out his place in the offense and when to pick his spots. It's kind of weird with Wiggins in, just because you want Wiggins to be like kind of like Jonathan Kuminga and be able to hit those 2-point shots. And Kuminga actually doesn't hit them as efficiently as Wiggins does usually. But this season, Kuminga's actually been better at shooting the 2-point shot than Wiggins. So it's just an interesting kind of dichotomy where Kuminga kind of finds himself in a weird spot, and where maybe he's going to have to switch up his game a little bit and utilize his athleticism to get those lob dunks and things like that off of passes, rather than maybe that isolation play that sometimes he's been running early in the season just to get buckets. But it's important that he develops that game, just because we do need to take the load off of Steph Curry. Just to kind of illustrate this point, this year, Steph Curry has scored 411 points. The next two leading scorers, which is Klay Thompson and Andrew Wiggins, if you add them up together, barely get to 411 points, which just shows how dominant Steph Curry has been and how big of a scoring punch he's packed and how important he is to the Warriors offense. I think it's just incredible the season that Steph Curry is having. If we were 6-3 like we were earlier in the season, we'd be considering him for MVP. But obviously, not really much consideration now for him, just because of the record of the Warriors, which is 7-9. Looking kind of ahead to the upcoming games, obviously we have the game tonight versus the Spurs. I think the Warriors will win that, get back to 8-9. I think the Kings, I think we have a chance to win that game as well. I think the Warriors just own the Kings, get back to 9-9. And then I think we have a game the 30th and the 2nd as well. And I think we'll beat the Clippers probably once and lose to them once, which will leave us at a great 10-10. So I hopefully by the next time we're talking to you guys, the Warriors are 10-10. But the Warriors have been kind of unpredictable this season. Hopefully getting Draymond Green back will really help our defense and will improve on the offensive end in terms of diversifying the scoring, and hopefully our role players continue to play well. But that's it for you guys today with Warriors Weekly. Thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, and